Hey guys, OG Albina here, bringing you guys our Spring Seasonal 2025 run. Now, the Spring Seasonal is a tournament that Smogon Draft puts on every year in the spring. It is a large 500 plus player Swiss tournament. Basically, you have to go X and 2 in order to move on, or better, obviously. There's 9 rounds of Swiss, so 7 and 2, 8 and 1, or 9 and 0 will move you on to top 32 in the tournament, and that's going to be our goal. I don't know if you guys really remember last year, we didn't have a lot of like individual tournament runs go up on the channel like as for movies, and honestly it's because I didn't perform very well in a lot of them, and I didn't want to post tournaments of me not playing well. So I made it a big point to really grind my individual stuff this year, not only so I can get you guys some content, but also so I can prove to myself that, hey, I am a good Pokemon player and I can play in these high-level tournaments and do well in them. So I really sweat this one. I wanted to give big shouts to Kirby, where he mocked me for a ton of these games, Sin of Wrath, who mocked me for like, I think, pretty much all of them, and Sage, who helped out in a couple matchups early on in the tournament, and as well as L5, who helped me out in a couple matchups where I was having some trouble coming up with like building concepts and things like that. So yeah, we really sweat this one. A really fun team in this tournament that we're going to go over really quick, and I want to show you guys off the run. So if you guys do enjoy today's Draft League movie, be sure to drop a like on the video as well as sub to the channel. On our way to 10k subs, and that's a lot. Really far away, over 6,000, or a little under 6,000 away. So I need your help and reaching that goal. I really appreciate if you drop the sub. You might think you're subbed already, you might not be. Please go down and double check and hit that button. That being said, let's jump right into it. I do want to go over the team really quick. It is going to be an 8-mon draft with free Terra preview as Terraform. We have, I believe it's up to 3 captains, but we only ended up getting 2. 28 Terra points total. And yeah, that being said, let's kind of jump on into it. You see our round 1 pick ended up being an Enamorus. And Enamorus is one of my favorite Terra captains used in the format. And it's no different here. Obviously, we did draft it as a Terra captain, especially if you're getting it early on. And while I don't, I'm not a big fan of like the Terra Stellar, like Terra Blast stuff. I think it's a little bit mid. I do love Enam in the concept of just clicking Terra Fairy, Specs, or Scarf Moonblast and doing some freaking damage. I think it's great with a Scarf. It's great with a Specs. It's great as like a Boots 4 attacks guy. It can even set up with Calm Mind and Agility if you go Cute Charm instead of Contrary, which is obviously really nice. And it even has a great utility in moves like Healing Wish, my favorite move in the game. So I think this Pokemon's actually excuse me, jeez. I think this Pokemon's actually really slept on. I think a lot of people have kind of been put off on it the last like year or so. But I think it's one of the best Terra captains in the format, and I hope to kind of prove that throughout this tournament. I think we drafted a pretty fun team around it, and I'm really excited to use it. And I also really like it in the context of a Terra captain, in the sense that I don't think it needs to Terra all the time. Whereas a lot of other of these like top-end Terra captains, like say like a Raging Bolt, which is great, by the way. Nothing Raging Bolt is bad. It's much better than Enam. When you draft Terra Raging Bolt, you're Terraing your Raging Bolt, so your team should kind of be used in such a way and structured in such a way. Whereas Enam, if I'm Scarf, Terra Fairy, Moonblast, and my opponent has big Fairy weakness, while Fairy is definitely like, Terra Fairing is obviously probably a good idea, I don't need to. And if I'm getting another strong Terra Captain, that allows for a lot more flexibility in the builder, which I think is really cool. And we did get another strong Terra Captain, so I really like that aspect of it. You'll see multiple guys Terraing in this video, which is pretty cool. And so we ended up grabbing Garchomp. I think honestly the perfect round 2 pick in Paldea in general, but I love it right here. Not only does it like offensively check a lot of the things that Enam doesn't appreciate, like steals and poisons, things that resist Fairy, essentially, but it's also great as a utility guy, right? We can SD and Scale Shot win the game, but we can also go with a Spike set, a Rock set, under Rocky Helmet, Dragon Tail things around, be physical special, or even just go tried and true and be like Rock's SD 2 attacks, or just Choice Scarf. Chomp has a great Choice Scarf speed tier. I think it's really good at its job. So yeah, we end up drafting Chomp round 2, another mon I'm really big on. So lots of comfortability in this draft so far. Speaking of Jirachi. Now, if you noticed the mons before, both of them were weak to Ice. Garchomp being weak to Fairy, Enam being weak to Poison. A lot of the weaknesses that these Pokemon have above, Jirachi actually covers pretty much almost perfectly. It also gives us some momentum in U-turn, allowing us to get into these top-end offensive threats like Garchomp and Enam for free without having to hard switch them in, which is always going to be important. It's great to have offense, but you need to have means of getting into your offense to do damage, right? And that's what Jirachi is here to help out with. It gives us another Stealth Rocker, which is great, and another Healing Wish guy. Obviously, you can do other things. It can kind of be the centerpiece guy. You can definitely go Calm Mind Jirachi. You can definitely go like Cool Weakness Policy variants. You can definitely do a ton with this thing, right? I mean, look at the move pool. It's obviously immense. But really, on this team, Jirachi is here to function as an ultimate utility guy, a pivot, Healing Wish guy, a rocker, just an overall great team player. Now, going next, though, we did need some speed control, and that was going to be Sneasel. You see, I already have Dire Claw selected. I mean, where there's a Dire Claw, there's a way, right? There's always an out there. You can always go with cool, like, SDM burn sets, but I'm a big fan of just Poison Touch, either a Choice Scarf or a Choice Band, and just clicking the button. Dire Claw, U-turn, Close Combat, and then you either go Gunk, you go Throat Chop for Ghosts, and things of the sort. I mean, really, really solid Pokemon. Really love Sneasler a ton. And it gives us that elite speed tier that we didn't have up to this point, which is great. And again, more momentum to get into the offense, right? Which is great. I'm sure you've noticed 2 Mons weak to ground, 1 neutral, 1 immune that's not very bulky. We need a ground resist. Unfortunately, that was going to be Serena on this team. Now, I have a very love-hate relationship with Serena. I feel like I draft it all the time, but then I simultaneously like shit on it all the time. We'll see if it ends up working out here. Maybe this will be the league that or the tournament that makes me think a little bit better of Serena. What it does on paper is perfect for this team. Not only does it resist ground, it also grabs great momentum and knocks items. And to check the bulky waters as well, but also on top of that, it gives us spin. And I really don't want my removal to be defog on this team when I have Chomp Jirachi, and I want to set up spikes for my Sneasler and my Enam to really go ham and go crazy. I don't want to defog those away, but I also don't want to deal with hazards on my side, right? I don't want to have to run Boots Enam. So having a spinner is always going to be nice in that regard, and it threatens a lot of spin blockers. A lot of them don't switch in well to Serena, so while it may not be the best ground check in the world, which is kind of one of the main reasons here, I do think it is an okay spinner in that context. So yeah. Next up, we have Hoopa Unbound, and this is going to be the second Terra Captain I was talking about. Man, let me tell you, I'm so excited. This thing was at 8 points, and now I'm not saying that in the context of like, I can't believe they put Hoopa Unbound at 8 points. What idiots. No, I think it's like a fair pricing considering how little this guy gets used this gen. But I think now that its price is lowered enough, it kind of opens the door to be like, maybe we test out with some cool Terra Hoopa shenanigans. And I think this thing can be really solid with Terra, right? And obviously has like the fat special defense set, so like Assault Vest Terra sets are going to be really, really solid, whether it be Terra Water, Terra Dark, Terra Fighting, whatever it might be. But also being able to shed this weak, terrible defensive typing of Psychic and Dark, alongside your terrible defensive stats, really can kind of patch that terrible defense stat, right? 80-60 isn't good, but it's not as terrible when you don't die to, Caterpie Bug Bite. You know what I mean? So, good way to kind of mitigate that, obviously, and you can change it to, like, better defensive neutral typings. You see, like, Water, Fighting, Dark as, like, a stab option, Poison, things of the sort, very often on Hoopa. So, that's pretty cool. Fairy is another really solid one. And there's the offensive capabilities, right? There's always the chance that we just bring Scarf Hoopa in general in a matchup, and we're like, screw it, we'll throw on Terra Dark there. And then we get in an endgame, we're like, don't really need a Terra Enam. But man, this Scarf Adamant Terra Dark Hyperspace whole endgame, looking pretty strong. And we can do that instead, which I think is really cool. I think it's a really fun mon, definitely like a luxury pick, and you can see there's definitely some roles that we kind of suffer on because we drafted this Hoopa, but man, is this thing cool. So I'm really excited to use it. Great utility piece, and Rotom was next. It gives us another ground check, which I think is important when we have Serena as our main ground check, right? It's another immunity with Levitate. It's a spin blocker, kind of most importantly, which I think is really nice. It's also a flying resist, which is really important. We don't really have great flying resist as a Jirachi, so it really just kind of alleviates a lot of the defensive pressure that a lot of the other Pokemon on our team kind of have to deal with, mostly in Serena and Jirachi. And it also gives like a specific check to Pokemon like Great Tusk and Iron Treads that are like the best spinners of the format. This thing with a Culper is always going to be very strong into those guys. So a little bit more of a matchup fish type mon, but honestly, not bad at all. Rotom's seen a lot of play this gen as kind of that low tier kind of ghost spin blocker kind of guy. And then lastly, Big Gator. Why do I have Flip Turn selected? You might be wondering. Obviously, when you think of Gator, you think of Sheer Force, you think of a Life Orb, and you think of Swords Dance and Dragon Dance and all of its crazy Sheer Force coverage, Aqua Jet for priority, all that stuff. But really, while that isn't great, and I love that aspect of it, I don't think that Fat Gator's bad. I'm going to spoil you guys. I bring Fat Gator multiple times throughout this tournament, and I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to surprise you how good it is at that job. Now, it's not good at it in the sense of like compared to other traditional bulky waters, right? They're obviously going to be better, but I think that Gator is really cool as a low tier water option because you have that option to just set up and win. Your opponent's like, oh my gosh, this 6 point water can just sweep my team at +2. I have to be very careful about this. How do I approach it with screens? How do blah, blah, blah. But we also have the option of Flip Turn and kind of being that defensive pivot. And I don't need it to stick around forever as a defensive pivot. This is a very offensive team. I need it to come in, take a hit or two, sponge it, and Flip Turn out. If we could do that, Gator's doing his job, right? So I think that's pretty cool. I'm definitely excited to use this team. It definitely isn't like the objective best team I've ever drafted, but I think it's pretty fundamentally sound. I think it's a really fun team too. And yeah, we can just jump right into round 1. Alrighty, round 1, we're going up against Nim right here, and he has a pretty scary team. We have a Terra's Rude, Deoxys Speed, Tinkaton that is covering up the Deoxys Speed with his big-ass hammer, Cinderace, Petron, and the Landorus. Now, big scary threats of note, Zarude. Zarude's always going to be scary. Now, I'd like to mention I really did expect Terra Ghost this week. You'll see that I am correct once we start the battle. The reason I thought Terra Ghost was likely is, one, we have a Sneasler. Sneasler kind of like almost forces people's hand into Terra Ghost. I actually kind of like it plus Hoopa because of that, because Hoopa like smokes Ghost offensively. If it can outspeed them, obviously they kind of smoke him, if not, if they're physical. But regardless, I thought it would be nice. Obviously, the Ghost is going to be great in anti-Sneasler tech, as well as the fact that we don't have a Ghost Resist on our team. I mean, look at it. We just don't have a Ghost Resist on our team. So Terra Ghost is really, really strong. Terra Blast is great, easy. Like, you just need one coverage move on Zarude. That's going to be it. So it allows it to be like Bulk Up, Recovery, Terra Blast, then it can be Taunt, it can be Trailblaze, it can be so many different things. So I'm really, really expecting Terra Ghost, and you can see the team is kind of built around that. Dio Speed is always going to be scary. Cinderace, I don't have great consistent counterplay to, and Landorus is a big problem. For a very long time, we had Rotom on the build as the check, and you'll see we end up changing our ways, and our pivot is actually going to be that 6 spawn you see right there in Gator. But let's go over the team really, really quick. Quick team builder. We have Tank Chomp, pretty standard stuff. Very, very physically defensive. This is going to be our main pivot into the likes of the Cinderace, but it also checks Zarude. Unless it's Terra Fairy, we can always Dragon Tail that thing out. Make sure it doesn't stay in. Earth Power and Flamethrower, just solid neutral coverage. Flamethrower covers Balloon Tinkaton as well, and I think there's something on the bench that Flamethrower hits super effectively, so it's not just Balloon Tinkaton, but nice to have coverage to like not be walled by that guy completely if we can't attack it. But yeah, pretty simple stuff. Spikes are really strong into this team, go a long way. So yeah. Next up, we have Enam here. We are Terra Dark on Enam with Player of Taunt, Superpower, and Terra Blast. Terra Dark really strong in this team. Again, we're really expecting Terra Ghost. I'm really expecting Terra Ghost, so I wanted Terra Dark to be able to resist that, as well as the fact that it does deal with Petron a little bit better. We are Taunt on this set. The reason we are Taunt is we stop Zarude from bulking up in our face, and from there, we can go ahead and Terra Blast it down pretty comfortably, which is obviously very, very nice. We are Superpower contrary, obviously, to boost up as well, and it chunks down things like Tinkaton pretty darn well, so if we get that thing chipped down, 2 superpowers might be able to kind of just pick it off, depending on if it's Spadef or not. We also have our second captain here in Hoopa. Both of these can definitely Terra in this game, depending on how things go. We are Terra Dark, Choice Scarf, Dark Pulse, Hyperspace Fury, Trick, and Psychic. Now, again, I am really, really expecting Terra Dark Zarude, or Terra Ghost Zarude, so being that we have Dark Pulse to revenge that thing is going to be really nice. We are mixed because Hyperspace is really strong in everything not named Peckrunt. Like, Hyperspace is so strong in a Peckrunt, but Dark Pulse does more damage. And Dark is so strong and spammable consistently in this endgame if we can put Chip on Tinkaton, which the likes of Enam and Chomp can definitely do. And then I figured it was okay going mixed and having 2 dark coverage moves, depending on the situation, depending on Assault Vest, depending on investments on things and stuff like that. So, yeah, Hoopa, really, really strong Mon here. Really viable Terra Captain as well, in my opinion. Then we have Scarf Sneasler, faster than Deoxys, forces a lot of switch-ins, faster than Scarf Cinderace, which is also very, very nice, giving us an out into that. And having something faster than Deoxys is always going to be nice. Just stabs, U-turn, Throat Chop, pretty simple. We also have a Shuka Berry, Jirachi here, Iron Head, Thunder Wave, Stealth Rock, and Ice Punch. Pretty simple stuff. Good Lure to the Landers, good Stealth Rocker, T-Waves and things. Be annoying. Then lastly, we have Gator. Now, the reason I don't have EVs on this is because I played this game in Vancouver, actually, when I was at Vancouver Regionals with Kurt and Keegan and Dell. It was a ton of fun. But we played this the first night I was there. It was like a Thursday night. And I remember we were out at dinner, or we were sitting in the B&B, something like that. And I was like, man, Rotom isn't a good check to Landers. I think I was mocking Sin at the time, too. I was like, man, Rotom is a terrible check to Landers. In the sense that, like, I really, like, don't deal with it if it just has, like, neutral psychic move, right? I just don't deal with it efficiently. Or if they slot on, like, a crunch or something like that and go physical. I just don't deal with it. And I don't even do that much damage back to it. So it's like, okay, well, maybe Gator with an Assault Vest doesn't necessarily hard check this thing. It does pivot in, can take 1, and flip turn out, and maintain initiative, get us into something else. You see, I actually have Dragon Tail for Ice Punch. I forgot to change that in this little team builder. Liquidation plus Jet does plenty to the... what do you call it? The Landers. And Dragon Tail is actually a cool way of phasing things around if we get up some hazards. It also doesn't let Zarude just, you know, bulk up in front of me, unless it does go with that Terra Fairy set. So, just gotta be careful about that. But we'll know that on preview. And Fairy's pretty weak to Sneasler, so I'm not expecting it, to be honest with you. But yeah, that being said, let's jump into it. So we are going to lead off with Sneasler again. We do see that it is Terra Ghost on the Zarude. Good to know for us, right? I'm going to lead off with Sneasler as it is faster than everything on my opponent's team minus a Scarf Deoxys, and I'm not expecting that. So I do U-turn on Landorus, not fearing it being Scarf. It shows Earthquake, showing Physical, but no Life Orb, which is great. It is going to U-turn out this next turn as I do just maintain a little bit of initiative, get a flip turn, and this is going to allow me to my Garchomp to get up a pretty darn free spike, right? There's nothing on my opponent's team that can really stop this other than like Court Changing Cinderace, but this is my check to Cinderace, so it's hard for them to position that right now. It does come in right here though, and it ends up just staying in and double edging me. Now this shows to not be boots, so I'm like, okay, maybe it's banded, whatever. I take a banded double edge from here anyways, and I'm just gonna Dragon Tail it out. You know, does no harm, no foul. Maybe they were trying to court change, I don't know, but they end up clicking double edge, and you're gonna see here they do take recoil, but they're not gonna take Rough Skin Helmet, showing that they are protective pads. But honestly, while they don't take the chip from that, they do have to come in, spike, double edge recoil, and Dragon Tail. They're leaving at 49, have to come in on a spike. So, I mean, Garchomp has essentially done its job in that regard. I do force in the Zarude right here, and I'm going to make a pretty aggressive pivot out into my Enamorus, because I don't expect them to want to bulk up in my face. I expect them to just throw off an attack, maybe a knockoff, something of the sorts, and Enam is probably the most expendable to take a knockoff at this point. We do just see a Terra Blast and Immediate Terra, completely fine with me, as Tinkaton is going to pivot out here. Them fearing the Terra Dark makes sense. They don't know that I'm physical too, so they can't just like go into P.E.K.K.A Runt, which again also makes sense. So Tinkaton is going to be forced in, and again, this is kind of the idea with that Scarf Hoopa endgame, is Tinkaton has to switch in on Enam. I mean, it just has to. Maybe not now that they see that I'm physical, but I can always be mixed as well, right? So just things to know. Out comes the Stealth Rock from the Tinkaton, but I'm going to get my own rocks. Again, really putting on the hazard pressure on my opponent. Cinderace has one more switch in now, like officially, which is always going to be really nice. So we get up our own rocks as we get T-Waved here this turn, and I'm just going to throw off my own T-Wave as I do take a knock here and lose my Shuka. But again, this is great value for me. Like really solid value for me. Landorus is going to come out. It's going to actually have to take an Iron Head, which is great. If only we Ice Punch, right? That would have been pretty dawn play. We're going to die to an Earthquake, but again, Jirachi did its job. We're going to go into Hoopa here, and I'm actually going to elect a Terra. We know this isn't Scarf, so this is just pretty much a certified KO. Again, Tinkaton doesn't really switch in anymore, right? We're Terra Dark. Dark Pulse is really strong. Obviously, it comes in, it's Parad, Rock, and a Spike. That's a lot of damage. So Landorus is going to go down. We're going to see a sack. Tinkaton does pivot in here. It is going to eat its own Citrus Berry. So again, good things to note. We do burn that immediately though. So next time it comes in, it's likely to get to it KO'd. As I pivot Gator just to sack it off, and we get pretty lucky and get a really nice para here. As the Tinkaton is going to not be able to hit us, not be able to knock us off, not be able to knock us out with Gigaton Hammer. I'm not sure if it did guaranteed, but regardless, still really nice here. This turn, I'm going to make a bit of an aggressive play. In my head, I'm like, okay, they're not going to want to take a liquidation on this thing. Even if they have a P.E.K.K.A Run, make a really aggressive play and Dragon Tail, thinking, hey, they're not going to want to sack any health on this thing because they're only Hoopa and Enam check at this point. So P.E.K.K.A Run does come in as I do make the aggressive play and call it correctly. Dragon Tail them out, really keeping them super low, and Tinkaton is forced back in, which is best case scenario, down at 55% now, and now it definitely doesn't switch into Hoopa anymore. So I feel a little bit more confident going for a liquidation at this point. Really chipping down this Tinkaton if it wants to stay in. It does. 42%. Knockoff doesn't kill me, so we see that I actually wouldn't have died there, but they might have felt more inclined to stay in if they knocked me off before. But regardless, we're going to be able to knock it out here. Zarude's going to come out here. I do just Jet to get some extra chip. I'm thinking, again, they're not going to set up when I show Dragon Tail. They do Trailblaze, though, so a little bit scary. Ways this can go poorly is if I miss Dragon Tail or they crit my Garchomp. If they don't, though, I am very much so out of range of any attack that this thing wants to go for, and I can just go for a Dragon Tail. They are going to Electrosynthesis up. Thankfully, we don't miss, though. I'm going to force this thing out into Deoxys. It's also going to take a bunch of Hazard Chip, so not going to be Boots, which is great. Hazard Attack is really paying off. Ice Beam is going to kill us as we sack here, and we do see Life Orb. So good to know. Life Orb is very scary, but thankfully, since we have the Sneasler, we always have an out to it, especially now that it's taken this much damage due to passive chip from Hazards and Life Orb. U-turn is going to be a nice KO on it. We can U-turn on the Cinderace sack right here and just go ahead and pick it off, which is great. Down goes Cinderace. We're going to go on to Hoopa. The reason we reset tempo and go into Hoopa here is because Hoopa is a Pokemon that does not allow a Trailblaze on Zarude. Don't want Zarude to be able to Trailblaze because they'll want to outspeed my Sneasler, or it will only be outsped by my Sneasler, and I can just Trailblaze again. And it'll outspeed my Hoopa if it gets off a Trailblaze, and that's kind of my main way of killing it. Plus, 3 Mon's weak to Dark. This forces in Deoxys to take Rock, Spike, and more Life Orb, which again, is always going to be a good thing. So I do go out into my Hoopa. The reason I say Deoxys is forced in is because it's the only thing that can outspeed this, right? You can very easily outspeed Scarf Hoopa with Deoxys. They actually like to go for extreme speed, so either telling me that they're like a bulky Life Orb set, or they don't have like a move to kill Hoopa like from 76. I believe after this next rock's turn, there's a chance that Life Orb E-Speed could knock me out from there, but that tells me like maybe they aren't Focus Blast, whatever it may be. Regardless, I can go into Sneasler, and at this point, I don't even need a U-turn to kill anymore. I'm looking at my opponent's team. Okay, Rock and Spike are up. Dio definitely died to Throat Chop. This thing, 2-hit KO to Throat Chop. And Zarude, 2-hit KO to Throat Chop. So I can pretty easily just throw off said Throat Chop and pick up a KO at this point. Petron's going to come in, take a ton of hazards. Does reveal to be Colbur, but definitely not going to matter at this point with it at 11%. And we're just going to go ahead and 2-hit KO it. Next, out comes Zarude. But again, I'm not really under a ton of duress here. It can't knock me out with a Terra Blast. Even with a crit, I believe we are completely fine to live that hit. If it Trailblazes, we're still going to outspeed the next turn and just 2-hit KO it. So really, we're not under any worry at this point to this Zarude. It is going to try and synth up as I do just keep spamming Throat Chop. Eventually, it's going to run out of them and stay too low. I think my opponent just realizes this and goes for a Terra Blast as I am able to 2-hit KO it. Out comes Deoxys, and we will die to extreme speed at this point. But thankfully, due to this thing is Life Orb, it's going to take itself out to its own Life Orb, so we're not going to have to worry about dodging a Focus Blast or whatever it may be, living extreme speed, as we do win this game in a very, very tight 1-0 fashion. So really fun one. The whole team showed out, made some cool aggressive plays with like the AV Gator, Dragon Tailing on the Tinkaton switch out into the Peck Run. Thought that was a pretty fun play. And yeah, we were able to start off the tournament strong and go 1-0. Let's jump into game 2. All right, round 2 comes along. We're playing against Volt Ninja here. He's pretty interesting team consisting of Tentacruel, Lando T, Cinderace, oh boy, another Cinderace, Iron Valiant, Terra Kingambit, and Terra Reuniclus. Lots of scary things. Obviously, Terra Kingambit can get out of hand very, very fast. We have a lot of Dark Resist, or a few Dark Resists on the team, but they don't like last long term. So you have to be very careful about like SD Sucker Endgame. You will see it does end up being Terra Dark as well. So really, really have to be careful of certain calcs into that guy. And Reuniclus is honestly annoying too. I remember when I was mocking Kurt for this, he actually brought the same set that my opponent ended up bringing, an Assault Vest Terra Steel, which is really, really nice considering that my opponent doesn't really have great long-term answers to Enam or the Hoopa that we end up leaving on the bench. So let's go ahead and go over the team that we ended up bringing in this battle. Once again, Tank Chomp, we're playing Cinderace, we're playing Kingambit, we're playing Lando. It's kind of just a fat Chomp matchup waiting to happen, where EQ, Spikes, Dragon Tail, and Endure. Endure giving us even more Rocky Helmet Chip, depending on what attack is being clicked from like Cinderace, things of the sort. Specs Enam, my opponent doesn't have great long-term Enam answers. Psychic and Earth Power cover Tentacruel. Earth Power really is there to hit Kingambit super effectively, as well as Terra Steel on the what do you call it? The Reuniclus. I am going to be leading this immediately and just clicking Specs Moonblast. It leads well into Landers, which has been the most common lead into me. And Landers really gets scared when I pop Contrary, and popping Contrary also kind of deters the immediate switch into Tentacruel in some instances, because if I am physical and I get it to +1, Tentacruel really doesn't take that on. It really only takes on special variants decently. So even then, Specs Fairy Moonblast is really strong here. It's our only Terra Captain, so we can Terra it right away. And we have Sneasler here, just once again, Scarf for Dire Claw, Close Combat, U-Turn, Gunk Shot, pretty simple stuff. Also, it's a Scarf Professional and Iron Valiant, which is really nice, on top of the Cinderace, obviously. Colbur Jirachi, this is going to be our main Valiant check. We are Colbur to deal with +2 knockoffs and things of the sort. Ironhead, Stealth Rock, Thunderwave, and U-Turn, pretty simple. SD Gator, Liquidation, Aquajet, Swords Dance, and Crunch, really, really strong Pokemon in this matchup. If we get up an SD, really breaks through our opponent's team super well. And then we have a Rocky Helmet Rotom as well. Deals with the likes of Landers pretty well, punishes U-turns, and is just generally pretty annoying for our opponent to deal with. Alrighty, that being said, let's jump into it. So, we do see it is, like I said, Terra Dark and Terra Steel on the Reuniclus, Terra Dark on the Kingambit. We lead Enam into the Landers, so we get that play right, immediately pop our Contrary. And again, if I'm my opponent, I'm like, oh shit, don't really deal with physically Enam super well. They do still end up going Tentacruel, but we see it's actually probably a pretty more physically defensive, or at least not Spadef variant, because we do 40% there, which is a ton of damage. I go into Jirachi just to cover for any kind of poison move, potentially get on my rocks to be forced out, but just end up going for a flip turn. I'm making an aggressive play here, and I'm going to stand, and I'm going to go for my own Stealth Rock. I don't think my opponent's going to go for an EQ. I think rocks are paramount for them, and chipping down my team, putting in range of Kingambit, things of the sort. Plus, I have a Rotom, so like just losing that turn for no reason doesn't seem worth, and I really want my own rocks up here, so I am going to go ahead and get them up immediately. and then pivot out into my Rotom as the opponent does end up clicking Earth Power, not Earthquake. So good to know. I am going to Whisk this thing just because it is passive damage and we're Hex anyway, so we kind of need that burn to do damage to it. It does end up slow U-turning out, but taking Helmet, and out comes Reuniclus. It takes Rocks here, so even before this Volt Switch does nothing, I do recognize that this is most likely going to be an Assault Vest variant, being Assault Vest regen and not Magic Guard. So we Volt Switch out, do 10%, makes sense, but I get into my Garchomp as they just click Knock Off right here, and I am going to lose my Helmet, but they take a ton of passive damage in return, as I do just go ahead and get up a Spike here. Landers can come out if it wants, but again, between Rocks and Burn, it's kind of doing more than a Dragon Tail would have anyways at this point, and now we can Dragon Tail it going forward. Rotom is going to be the pivot of choice. We're going to see U-turn, more Helmet, so we've gotten this Lando down to 50% and popped its Citrus without even actually having to like directly damage it yet. Out comes Iron Valiant. I'm going to pivot on Jirachi. If it's double knock here, that's fine, not the end of the world, but I definitely don't want to sack my Rotom here, as they do unfortunately crit me with this Life Orb Moonblast. Landers is going to go ahead and be the pivot out here, as I believe I do just click Iron Head in case they want to stay in, go for a knockoff, go for a Shadow Ball, whatever it may be. Pivot out into Rotom. Again, this Landers is incredibly chipped. It's going to U-turn. Again, they're maintaining initiative, but their Landers only has like one more switch in before it's basically dead. I am going to sack off my Rotom because of that fact. I don't really need it at this point anymore, and I see this as my opportunity to get in my Gator and Swords Dance up and do some damage. So right here, the opponent is going to go for a U-turn with Libero. Does a ton of damage, as Reuniclus is going to be the pivot of choice as we do SD up in its face, forcing a Landorus sack the next turn, as it does get a -1 on us, so we're only at +1 opposed to the +2, but still, it's not like much switches into +1 Gator. Out comes Cinderace, and maybe I could have called this Sucker Punch. It was kind of obvious from a mile away. I do just end up Aqua Jetting. Liquidation would have killed, so a bit unfortunate, but not the end of the world, as we do get off some good chip on the Cinderace and get out into our Garchomp. This turn, I am just going to elect to EQ here. I could get up another Spike pretty freely, but there's no ground resist anymore, so despite being defensive Chomp, EQ is just a KO here. It kills this, to it kills this, to it kills this, and KOs this. So despite it being defensive, Garchomp's still putting on a lot of offensive pressure here. We're going to Earthquake, knock out the Valiant. Out comes King Gambit, which does show me that this is going to Terra, right? They have to Terra this if they're sending this out, but it's not Terra Fairy, nothing of the sort. I can go ahead and just Dragon Tail, punish this thing for setting up, and force some Hazard Chip on something else coming in. So King Gambit does come out. It does SD with Fallen 2, Terra Dark, really scary, but we are just going to be able to Dragon Tail this turn, force out the Reuniclus. And Reuniclus doesn't immediately threaten the Jirachi on my team, so I'm going to be able to pivot out here as Psychic does pop. I believe I do just throw off a Thunder Wave. In hindsight, probably just Iron Heading was a better play, and you'll see why. Shadow Ball's just going to pick me off. They weren't really threatened by my Jirachi either, as I can't really go into Garchomp right away, because EQ won't kill. They don't really have a great switch into Sneasler, so I figured Sneasler plus U-turn was probably better offensive positioning, because then I could go into Garchomp and just click EQ afterwards. Psychic does pop. It gets a crit, which is also not great, but we were kind of in range of everything we were going to be in range of anyways, so not the end of the world. Cinderace is going to be the pivot of choice. It is Boots. Does click Pyro Ball. Obviously not going to be contact in that regard, but no biggie. Go on to Sneasler, and we're just going to click Close Combat. Now, this is where this endgame gets a little sticky, and where I think I messed up. So, looking at this right now, King Gambit does not kill me with Terra Dark, Fallen 5 Sucker Punch from this range unless I am at -1. So my thought process right here was to go into Enam, live any hit, click Specs Moonblast, and put this thing, or I think it was a +2, it didn't kill me or something of the sort. I forget. Regardless, go into Enam, attack this, come back in with Sneasler to where we're not dying to, +2 Sucker Punch, put ourselves in a good spot. What I didn't realize though, is that Enam also isn't in range. It's at full HP, so I don't need to risk going Enam and taking a poison move and dying. I can just Close Combat, put this thing in range of Moonblast, and then Moonblast, and then the game's over from that point, right? This also covers them going for an aggressive spin right here to get faster than Enam, whatever it may be. Close Combat is 100% my play right here, but I make a very silly play, and I go hard Enam. Now, thankfully, I don't get punished right here. Hydro Pump comes out. Sludge Bomb definitely would have killed me, but thankfully, because of this, we're able to, because it wasn't a Sludge Bomb, we're able to kill with a Moonblast. This does prevent King Gambit from ever setting up, which is really, really nice. But yeah, we're just going to go ahead, die to Sucker Punch, and then now we just have to dodge a crit. Regardless, we're going to have to dodge a crit, whether it be with Enam or Sneasler. We do dodge the crit, which is nice, and we're able to take home a win. I think the main thing is risking the Enam was like a potential lose path if they click Sludge Bomb, or if they crit the Hydro Pump, whereas just staying in and close combating with Sneasler was completely fine. Like, completely fine, because I can either KO or bring the tentacle down to a low enough state where Enam can come in and just Moonblast, and I don't have to risk anything. So very, very silly play and very bad play on my end. I do want to like reiterate that. I will 100% admit when I make a terrible play. That was one of them. We didn't get punished though, so maybe there's something in the water this tournament, and we're going to move on to round 3 with a 2-0 record. All right, round 3 comes along. We're playing against Butterchoke here, and he has a really, really interesting team. Meowscarada, which is a big, big threat to our squad. Actually, we have literally nothing for Meowscarada, so it's definitely very, very scary. Terracrabominable, which, interesting to say the least, but man, you're going to see that guy's pretty freaking good when we get into the battle. Klefki, which can be really annoying with screens and hazards and things of the sort. Cresselia, which can also Terra, makes it really, really annoying defensively into a ton of our team, makes it really solid. Terapagos and Landorus and Carnot, which can also Terra as well. So 3 Terra captains that we could potentially face off against in this battle. And yeah, they're all pretty darn scary. Let's take a look at the team that we have here. First up, we have a leading Calm Mind, Agility, and Amorous. Decently bulky, but not super, super. With Terra Electric, Moonblast, Earth Power, Calm Mind, and Agility. Terra Electric is mostly to avoid Thunderwave from that Klefki. And if we can lead this thing and really kind of get it going and start Calm Minding up, and, you know, set up an Agility, it can really do a lot of damage to this team. Electric also allows us to avoid a Thunder Wave from the likes of the Cresselia, which is really, really nice. So, like that aspect of it a lot. Next up is Hoopa Unbound. We are in Assault Vest variant, pretty darn physically, or pretty darn especially defensive here with Hyperspace Fury, Psychic Noise, Drain Punch, and Fire Punch. Psychic Noise is just kind of a tech option for Alexa Cresselia to make it to where it can't Moonlight in our face, depending on its Terra typing, which I think could be potentially nice as a way of stopping that thing from at least recovering for a fair little bit of time. Fire Punch for the Klefki, Drain Punch hits things like Crabominable and Meowscarada, and Hyperspace Fury is generally spammable. Oh, Drain Punch also obviously for the Terapagos, and this is going to be our main Terapagos check. Our Terra Poison, I don't plan on tearing our Hoopa. We do have to be careful about Bug Buzz Terapagos. It's kind of a hard coverage move to fit in this matchup, to be completely honest with you, but if they do, things can get a little bit sticky. Then we have a Fizdef Gator, and you might be thinking, oh, did you bring Fizdef Gator just for that Crabominable? Hell no, I didn't. There was also a Gouging Fire that I was having a lot of trouble with in the builder and in testing. So we have a pretty fun, you know, way around that here with a Rocky Helmet Torrent set with Liquidation, Roar, Endeavor, and Aquajet. The idea is that I come in, I switch in on the likes of things like the Gouging Fire. I can always roar them out if they're like a Dragon Dance Breaking Swipe set, things of the sort. I can always Endeavor and keep them low, as well as things like Cresselia that might want to switch in, things like the Terapagos if we're super low. Anything that things that can set up on us basically is really nice. And the fact that we're going to be low on health, most likely as we check things like the, the Gouging Fire and things of the sort. If we're low enough, we Endeavor something. If we get them in a range of Torrent Aquajet, it's always a plus side, right? So pretty interesting Gator set here, but it's actually a really, really great gouging check, considering our great natural bulk with 85-100. Then we have a much more offensive Garchomp. We're Life Orb this week. Earthquake, Scale Shot, Spikes, and Poison Jab. I love Spikes into this team. I don't really find any positions to SD, but there are definitely positions in an endgame where if I get a Scale Shot up, I can super win by just my raw attacking stats. Now, Pokemon like Cresselia have to be very chipped down. I do expect Terra Fairy in this game, which we do have Poison Jab for, but it still has to be chipped down pretty considerably. Same with the Landorus, has to be chipped down pretty considerably, but still a strong mon nonetheless. I have a Colbur Jirachi here, Ironhead, Thunderwave, Stealth Rock, and Healing Wish. Really, the Colbur is here to like serve as like kind of a lure and a one-time pivot to non-banded Meowscarada. Lure as in the fact that we can Thunderwave it, get a Rocks, and either Ironhead flinch it down, or maybe Healing Wish up something like Hoopa or an Amorous later on, which can always be really, really nice. And then we have a Scarf Serena, which is another really interesting mon here, but say we pivot on something like a Flower Trick. We can come in and really threaten this thing with a Scarf Triple Axle. Power Up High Jump Kick is also pretty darn strong. Power Up in particular is pretty spammable outside the Gouging that didn't end up coming. High Jump Kick is also nice in the Terapagos, and then we can always U-turn around, maintain initiative, and pivot, things like that. Alright, that being said, let's jump into it. Like I said, there's no Gouging here, and there's a Crabominable. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I jumped into the team preview and I was like, there's a Crabominable. That's kind of scary. I didn't really build for that guy or play him in any of the 3 mocks I took, but like, my Gator can check that instead of checking Gouging. We're good. So, let's jump into it. We do see that they are Terra Ghost Crabominable, Terra Fairy on the Cresselia, and Terra Grass on the Landorus. So, all good things to know. I'm going to lead with my Enam, and this is the biggest blunder. I lead into Meowscarada. In my mind, I thought immediately, okay, they cannot risk this. They cannot risk me just being Scarf and killing them dead. Unless they're Scarf themselves, and if they're Scarf themselves, they don't kill me. They need to be boosting item, either Band or Life Orb, in order to kill me with a triple axle right here if I terrestrialize into an electric type. So in my mind, I thought I had a very, very free agility, because I thought we'd see an immediate Calm Mind or agility. I forget which one I decided to click. I think it was agility, in case they did stay in and didn't kill me or something like that. Regardless, I thought there was a pretty likely chance that they'd switch out immediately, fearing Scarf not allowing this Meowscarada to die because it's really, really strong into my team. Hindsight though, Terra Electric does kind of tip off that I'm most likely going to be some kind of setup variant. Now, I could just be Terra Electric to avoid the paras from the opposing side, but so I don't necessarily think I made a bad play. I think my opponent made a very calculated risk, and you're going to see they are going to stay in. Not only that, they do actually happen to be Life Orb, which is one of the only scenarios in which I would have died there, and I did. So we unfortunately lose our Enamors turn 1 for literally no reason. Shadow Claw is going to come out next from this Meowscarada, which is stronger than Knockoff would have been because we're Colbur. I'm going to get up my rocks right here, as we do just end up Shadow Clawing again, taking more Life Orb, and we knock out the Meowscarada. So it wasn't like the most threatening Meowscarada ever because of like the way they played it, but it definitely like left its mark on the game by immediately KOing my Enam. Next up, Landers is going to pivot out. It's going to take a little bit of rocks here as I pivot through my Serena, kind of a one-time pivot into this thing, as long as it doesn't look Sludge Wave. And from here, we can threaten out with a potential triple axle, as they do switch out into the Klefki, as we do Power Whip here. I think I Power Whip just on a mid-ground because it does a decent amount to Klefki. Pivot through Hoopa, which seems counterproductive on the screens guy, but I don't take any damage from this with our AV, and I really don't take that much from Play Rough, to be honest with you, either, with how bulky we are. So we're going to see a screens, and then a Trick Room, and then a Steel Beam, allowing for an immediate setup of Crabominable. So while I'm up 2 Mons right now, that's not going to last. In my head, I was like, okay, we can go for Alligator, stall out some turns of this. Close Combat comes out, and oh my goodness, it did 67%. That has to be banded, right? No, it's just Life Orb. Guys, it's just Life Orb. We're going to go ahead and sack our Serena, bait another Close Combat right here, stall another turn of Trick Room, as well as a little bit more of the screens, which it was like Clay Klefki, so good to know. I'm going to Aqua Jet here, again, trying to keep this thing as low as possible between Helmet, Life Orb, and all of the sorts. This thing is going to be brought incredibly low. Does have the Trick Room wear off right here, and they switch out into the Cresselia. Now, I think hindsight, maybe hard Garchomp as a revenge of this probably wasn't my best play, because it does allow in the Cresselia, which can set up Trick Room again, and then just Lunar Blessing this Crabominable right back up to full, and then I have to deal with it again, and that's just not possible for this team at this point. Whereas Garchomp doesn't exert any actual offensive pressure on this guy, whereas I can go into Hoopa, guaranteed outspeed, and I threaten everything with Hoopa at this point too, so all good things to know. Can't really do anything about it now, as we are going to see 4-hit Scale Chop. Doesn't really matter through the Reflect, unfortunately. I'm just going to go for another attack here, or no, I pivot under Jirachi. And so we do see a Trick Room. A little bit unfortunate. I could have flinched it if it tried to, do anything else. Otherwise, it is going to go ahead and just Lunar Dance immediately. And you see the GG in the chat from me as I kind of accept defeat at this point. Close Combat comes out, does knock me out. There are 2 more turns of Trick Room. My only bet here is that they don't go for Ice Hammer on Hoopa because they don't want to miss. And then I pivot through Garchomp and live a Close Combat, forcing them to attack me twice, and maybe getting something done with Hoopa afterwards. So we are going to go ahead and switch, take a little bit of damage from this Close Combat, a little bit by 85%. They're going to be able to kill me, but we do successfully solve the Trick Room. So the game is not technically over yet. So we're going to go into our Hoopa. Drain Punch will be enough to knock this thing out, as well as get me back up to full. A little bit of HP isn't going to hurt. We have to 1v1 2 Mons. If this Hoopa, or if this Landers isn't U-turn, which it isn't, there is a chance. Now, you'll see Hyperspace Fury just barely misses on the KO. Depending on the investment, that might have been a roll. We also weren't max attack. If we either got the kill there or had Ice Punch over Psychic Noise, this was much more possible. Because if we KO this thing, and this Terravagos isn't Bug Buzz, it actually really does nothing to us. We do a ton of damage to Drain Punch after Shell is broken. So you're going to see we unfortunately do not kill right there. Another Earth Power is going to pop, do another 33. I just Drain Punch here, get 2% back, why not? If this Terravagos is also not Boots, we do still actually win this game. Not Boots and not Bug Buzz. Again, lots of contingent factors. You see they come in, they unfortunately are boots, and because of that, we're just not going to be able to recover off enough health. But again, if we're at 66%, again, you see that only does 28. I mean, literally nothing. So if we're at 66, we break the shell, we drain punch, we're getting like 30-ish back. Like, there's a very real chance we do actually end up winning that game. We don't. Tough one for sure. Kind of got smoked by the crab there, man. Weren't very prepared for it, and I think my early like super aggressive play on Enam was just came to bite me in the butt. I don't even know if it was necessarily a bad play, and I don't know if it was necessarily my opponent making an overplay. I think it was just us kind of viewing the game board and game state in different terms. So yeah, tough one, but what can you do? On to the next. All right, round 4 came along, and again, I'd like to mention that this tournament is going to be Swiss. So again, X and 2. We can only lose one more game before it becomes elimination time, right? So kind of get back on the winning ways. We want to move to 3-1 here. We're playing against Berna. Someone I feel like we always play Berna in these Smogon tournaments. I feel like I've played him like 10 times across a bunch of random different tournaments. Regardless, look at his team, look at mine. His team is just a cooler version of mine. He has my round 1 and 2 as his 2 and 3 because he got Valiant at the beginning and then got Enam Chomp and has like a similar kind of idea and structure. Not cool. Not cool at all. Enam or Valiant is always going to be a big threat. It's the second Valiant we've had to play this tournament. Very, very scary. Terra Enam is also a big problem to our team. Scizor Bandit is really, really powerful in this matchup, like incredibly so. Garchomp, same thing. Wow, is it scary offensively. And even like offensive to Dunsparce, I was struggling with in mocks. So much so that after my first iteration of the team, me getting smoked in a couple mocks with Sage and Cinerath and Kirby, I decided, you know what? When your matchup sucks like this, it's time to just Chungus offense it, and that's what we're doing. We got our dual screens lead Rotom. It's Fizz Def because it also checks the likes of Scizor pretty darn well with Willow. We Volt Switch around, gain and maintain initiative, and then we have Reflect and Light Screen. Pretty simple. From here, it's offense time. We have Agility, 3 attacks, Terra Fire, and Amorous, Moonblast, Mystical Fire, Agility, and Earth Power. Earth Power covers the likes of Tentacle, as well as potentially a Terra Fire on the opposing and Amorous side, which is potentially likely. Mystical Fire and Terra Fire is also really nice into Scizor, and it's nice to have more answers into Scizor. We have a Roselia Berry Garchomp. We are Earthquake, Poison Jab, Dragon Claw, and Stealth Rock. Pretty simple. 3 attacks, Rocks. Rocks are really strong here. DD, 3 for Alligator, Liquidation, Crunch, Earthquake, and Dragon Dance. Again, do a ton of damage really, really fast. And again, under screens, there's positions where you can find +2 and just win the game. We have a Scarf, Healing Wish, Jirachi, Iron Head, Fire Punch, U-Turn, and Healing Wish. Pretty simple stuff. Fire Punch for the Scizor, Iron Heads for everything else, U-Turn, Initiative, and Healing Wish to get my guys back. And then we have a Scarf Hoopa with Terra Poison this week, Gunk Shot, Hyperspace Fury, Fire Punch, and Ice Punch. Just all of the coverage we can get. Alright, that being said, let's jump into it. We are going to lead our Rotom, like planned before, as Garchomp is going to be the lead on the opposing side. They don't want to just get burned for no reason, so I just set up a Reflect. Light Screen the next turn as the Dunsparce comes in, is it clicks a nice Shadow Ball. 27% does get the Speed F drop, but I mean, we weren't staying in anyways, right? I'm going to go ahead and Volt out, immediately get onto Gator. They make a good play and go for a Glare, but that's fine. What I plan on doing is using Gator offensively under screens and Healing Wishing it back later on, especially because we saw that this is Terra Fire Enam. I want to be able to do so. It's also Terra Poison on the Dunsparce, but I don't expect that to Terra. Regardless, we're going to go ahead and Dragon Dance up as the Garchomp comes in. Under Reflect, I mean, Gator takes no damage. They basically have to sack off their Garchomp just to not sack. I mean, something has to die 1v1 to this Pokemon under screen. So we are able to knock it out with Liquidation into Earthquake. And Amorous is going to come out and make an aggressive play out into Jirachi. Jirachi is going to go ahead, take the Moonblast damage, take barely anything, and then make a very aggressive play right here. We saw that this is Terra Fire. The reason this is probably Terra Fire is for the likes of Jirachi. We can go ahead and resist Iron Head and probably just deal with us pretty well in that regard. So what I plan on doing here is popping a very, very early Healing Wish into my Gator. I will still have a couple turns of Light Screen up. This thing will be Terra Fire, and I can really, really exert some pressure from that position onwards. So we do see the Terra Fire. We get the play correctly. Healing Wish on the Mystical Fire. We're going to get out into for Alligator, and we'll have 1 turn of protection on this Light Screen to do whatever we want. I do like to just Liquidation this turn, though, as this Dunsparce can switch in and take a +1 Liquidation and just Glare me, but it cannot take 2 neutral liquidations from this range. So if I just throw off a Life Orb Liquidation, it's a KO into pretty much everything at this point. They're going to pivot out here into the Tentacruel as we do throw off one more liquidation, do 32%. And right here, I do kind of regret not just Dragon Dancing and either forcing in a booster speed Valiant or, you know, getting an immediate +1, because we're going to see right here, my Earthquake actually doesn't kill. They're a little bulkier than I thought they were based on the liquidation damage, and I do lose my Life Orb here, which is a bummer to lose it for literally no reason. I'm going to DD here as a flip turn comes out, and again, if I would have DD before, at least I'm at +1 before they flip turn out, whatever. Scissor's gonna come out, we're gonna hit it with a non-life or liquidation, and it does kill us with a U-turn. Now, what this U-turn shows me though, is that this is a choice band Scissor. 100% a choice banded Scissor. So, something we have to keep in mind, we still have our Terra on our Enamorus, and we're likely going to have to Terra our Enamorus to not lose to that thing later. Next, out comes Tentacruel, as I am going to make the Garchomp play. Just click Earthquake. There is no ground resist up to this point, so why not click Earthquake? Dodon Spark's going to be next. I'm going to EQ to try and prevent this thing from recovering for free. They actually like to just Boom Burst to put damage on me, which is totally fine with me. I'm going to Earthquake one more time, knock it out. Garchomp picking up 2 here. Edam's going to come out. Despite our Roselli Berry, we do actually pretty much always die to this Moonblast, so we are going to go down. This is going to allow my Hoopa to come in and click a Scarf Hyperspace Fury. Now, they could have gone into Valiant, but Psychic move is also likely potentially free. Scizor also just dies to any move humanly possible. This was pretty much a guaranteed KO on this Enamorus because we were Adamant Hoopa, which is obviously very, very nice. So, able to take out this Enamorus. Probably the biggest threat to our team. Gone. Beautiful. Wonderful. Next up, Iron Valiant's going to come out. It shows to be booster attack, which is very, very interesting. Not booster speed. So again, Scarf Hoopa can totally win this game eventually. We are going to go ahead and see an agility right here. Free switch, free agility. Makes sense. Zen Headbutt pops out as we go for a Reflect. The reason we go for a Reflect over going for a Will-O-Wisp first is because Will-O-Wisp can miss, Reflect can't. So Reflect gives me an out long term, whereas Will-O-Wisp missing the first term would be really, really bad for me. I actually might just lose the game. We're going to see Zen Headbutt just pop one more time. We see a Will-O-Wisp does end up missing. He's going for the flinch right here, which is understandable. You kind of need it at this point. We do miss the Wisp there, and again, that's why we went for the Reflect first, because we're in a worse spot, but not in a, oh no, I lose the game spot, if that makes any sense. So another Spirit Break is going to pop. It is going to knock us out there through the Reflect, unfortunately. But my Enamorus is going to be able to be the pivot of choice, and with Reflect up, really doesn't do that much. He makes a good play and goes for a close combat as we do Terra Fire. Moonblast is going to knock this out, and again, as long as we don't get double crit, we should be okay with our Reflect still up. Bullet Punch does not KO me because it does not crit. We're going to pick it off with a Mystical Fire and grab a dub. Definitely really, really happy with this one. I think despite the really poor matchup and honestly my opponent just having a better version of my team, we were able to play really, really well and take home a dub against a solid player. So, yeah, definitely a really, really fun one. And, yeah, let's jump on to the next one. Round number 5, and oh boy, another Iron Valiant and another Terrazarud. I swear we keep getting like these very similar team comps, and they're very annoying. We also have to play Palafin. Not big fan of Palafin. Mesprit, great support piece for all 3 of those, and then Gligar and Reverum. Reverum is definitely an interesting one. Gligar is okay. There was also like a Dawn fan on the bench, and one other thing. I forget what the other last mon is, but I will definitely take the Reverum showing up. It makes sense in the sense of like if I just brought like Specs or Scarf Fairy on my Enam, they just lost if they didn't have Reverum, so it makes sense in that regard. Let's go ahead and take a look at what we ended up rocking out with for our team in this battle. First up, we have a Calm Mind and Enamorus. Very, very bulky here. We are Calm Mind, Draining Kiss with Earth Power and Taunt. Terra Fairy to boost up those Draining Kisses pretty considerably. Taunt, again, allows us to taunt the Zarude, stop it from bulking up in our face, allowing us to Calm Mind and Draining Kiss, which is obviously very, very nice. Now, obviously, we have to be careful with the Palafin. Staying out range of Jet Punch, things like that. But Taunt's also nice for the likes of Gligar. It can't Toxic us. Nice for the likes of Mesprit, so it can't Thunder Wave us or anything of the sort. Honestly, really solid win condition in this battle. Then we have Hoopa, Choice Scarf, Terra Dark. Pretty simple. Dark Pulse, Psychic, Trick, and Destiny Bond. Destiny Bond is great too, take something down with us, but Dark Pulse and Psychic are pretty darn free otherwise. Scarf Sneezer, Double Scarf, you know me. Dire Claw, Close Combat, U-Turn, and Throat Chop. Throat Chop covers for like Terra Goes to Rude, like in the last time. But really, we're just going to be clicking Dire Claw, Close Combat, and U-Turn most of the game. Good speed control, faster than booster speed Valiant is the main thing. Then we have a Colbur Berry, Jirachi, Psychic, U-Turn, Healing Wish, and Thunder Wave. So, Healing Wish for the likes of Enam, for the likes of Hoopa, for the likes of Sneasler if we need it be, and also just a solid Shuka pivot, or Colbur pivot into the likes of the Iron Valiant. And we have Helmet Jump, Earth Power, Spikes, Dragon Tail, and Draco Meteor. Tank Chomp into things like Palafin, into things like Zarude. It just kind of makes sense. Solid check in a non-fairy Zarude, because we can always Dragon Tail it out. Then we have a Rocky Helmet Serena, which is going to be our main Palafin check as well. Drop Kick, U-turn, Rapid Spin, and Knock Off. Pretty simple stuff. Alright, let's go ahead and jump into it. We are going to lead off with our Sneasler. Again, faster than everything. Really, really punishes potentially like this Valiant lead, but I also really like it on the potential Palafin lead, because I can U-turn on like an incoming Gligar and reposition offensively, but it doesn't just cover Palafin lead, it covers likes of like offensive leads like Valiant and things of the sort. They don't lead Palafin, which means they have to find a position later to pop the form, which I think is very difficult on Palafin, so we will take that. We're going to U-turn on the Gligar, so still the same scenario that we kind of talked about a second ago. Get into our Serena, and I figured this is a very free knockoff just to make this thing a lot easier to deal with. They actually end up knocking off my Rocky Helmet, which is a little annoying, but not the worst trade in the world, as they do just spike in my face. U-turn. I found this pretty surprising, being that I could very easily carry Triple Axle in this matchup. But hey, no skin off my back, right? We're going to go into Garchomp right here. I'm just going to elect to get up a Hazard. Really nice to chip the whole team down really outside of the Gligar and the Mesprit for our Namorous endgame. Jirachi's going to be the pivot in here on an Ice Beam as I U-turn around and get into my Serena next. Mostly just trying to find a position to freely Rapid Spin. As rocks go up here, I know I can live any Ice Beam. And again, my job at this point, being that I don't really check Palafin anymore, is just to keep away Hazard. So I'm going to go ahead and knock off, get rid of this thing, Citrus Berry, which is great, or to J. Ricky. Down goes my Serena, but we kept the Mesprit low and kept rocks off the field. Gligar is going to be pivoted out next, and by pivoted, I mean sacked, because there's no Eviolite, so good night, Gligar, you are not lifting that hit. Iron Valiant is next, knowing that if we're locked into a Choice Scarf move, it's Dark Pulse, otherwise it's pretty much a free KO. As a Life Orb close combat does hit, and is going to 2-hit KO our Jirachi. Definitely annoying, means we don't get our rocks this game, but hey, what can you do? We're just going to have to adjust. Out comes the Iron, or my Hoopa, as I force out Zarude here on a Psychic. It's not going to be able to Terra this turn. I do just go into my Namorous, covers a knockoff, covers most things, but we see a U-turn, showing this isn't bulk up Zarude, which is really, really nice for me. Valiant's going to pivot in, take a Spike. I believe I just stay in. I know I live any hit, and taking this trade is really nice for me. So I just Draining Kiss. I think they scattered for Scarf there, but the next turn I'm just going to be able to Earth Power, so not being Scarf is great for me. Now, here comes the crux of Palafin. The curse of Palafin, you might say. This thing comes out. Can't stay in. It just can't stay in, because I'm going to kill it because I'm in an Amorous and I'm going to take advantage of it. So it has to come in, pop the form, and get a switch out immediately. This gives me a free turn to do whatever I'd like. So we just see a Mesprit sack as I call mine this turn. They're going to go ahead and sack it off. It does die to +1 Draining Kiss, which is great. So did everything else in the back, to be honest with you. Palafin is going to switch out again. And again, I live really any hit besides like Banded Wave Crash into this matchup, as we do see a Bulk Up, a Jet Punch, not quite enough to KO me, so Namorous is also going to pick off this Palafin, which is great. Out comes Valiant. I also forgot to mention that the Zarude was Terra Dark, so it's likely potentially like Scarf Zarude or something like that. This next turn, Moonblast is going to be able to pick off my Namorous just barely. I think it was guaranteed, but by just barely. Sneasler comes out, as we do just go ahead and U-turn. The reason I'm okay with U-turning here, while it might seem like a little bit of an overplay, is close combat didn't kill from there, right? I don't want to lock something adversely if it is randomly set up Zarude. I want to go ahead and either catch the Zarude coming in or whatever it may be, not kill this with Dire Claw, basically, because the Zarude can Terra into Dark, not be weak to it anymore, and things can get a little sticky and get a little annoying. So I U-turn, because I know for a fact that U-turn plus Life Orb is going to kind of do this thing in, as it does take a little bit of poison, which speeds along the process. They're going to knock out my Garchomp with a Moonblast, but that's completely fine, because they're going to knock themselves out to their own Life Orb chip. Out comes the Zarude. We have our Sneasler, pretty free lock, just going to click Close Combat. Down goes the Zarude, and that is going to be the battle. Pretty quick one. Another very, very offensive game, and Amorous putting in a ton of work, Sneasler putting in a ton of work, and even Pokemon like, what do you call it, Garchomp, who really weren't here for a long time and didn't like sweep or anything, putting a ton of work in that team effort to get us a win, get us, keep us going on the win column, I think pushing us to 4-1. So we're at the point where 3 more wins will get us into that top 32 bracket. Let's see if we can do it. Alrighty, here we are with the next round against Kronos XZ. Really scary squad. Offense headlined by Terra Raging Bolt. Haven't had to play it up to this point in the tournament. Have to now, which is definitely not fun. Our team doesn't deal with it super well, but I think we have some cool tools for it. We also have the Sneasler, tying our own Sneasler and really exerting a ton of pressure on our team. Samurai Sui, which you don't have switch-ins for, and we definitely don't have our removal this week in our Rapid Spin Serena, so gotta be careful about that. And then the Iron Treads is actually really annoying to switch into. They also are rocking, excuse me, with a DNC and Uxie as great support pieces as well. So really scary team. Let's see what we ended up bringing to combat it. First is going to be a sub Calm Mind, Terra Fairy, and Amorous. Pretty simple stuff. Moonblast, Earth Power, Calm Mind, and Substitute. Pretty simple. We're here to set subs up, Calm Mind up, and do some damage. We do have max speed to tie a treads if we need to. But really, there's a lot that can, like, revenge Enam, and we kind of do need, like, to be boosted. So I figured this would be the best of both worlds. We can take advantage of things like Uxie, things like DNC, force switch outs on things like the Samurai. And again, we don't necessarily have to Calm Mind. Terra Fairy Moonblast is honestly strong enough on its own, depending on the scenario. Then we have our Jirachi, which is going to be pretty simple. Psychic, U-Turn, Encore, and Healing Wish set. Encore is to Encore the Raging Bolt into any type of shenanigans, any type of Calm Minds, and things of the sort. So where we can beat it down that way. Healing Wish is to get back Enam, get back Garchomp, Hoopa, whoever it may be. And U-Turn is to maintain initiative on things like Iron Treads coming in. We then also have a SD Helmet Chomp here with Spikes, Earthquake, Swords Dance, and Dragon Claw. Really, I don't see too many positions where we position the Scale Shot, and I like the damage of +2 Dragon Claw opposed to a +2 Scale Shot, on top of being able to still run Rocky Helmet to punish the likes of Rapid Spinning on Treads, to punish the likes of Ceaseless Edge on the Hisuian Samurai, and to punish the Sneasler for really existing in general. So I kind of like the Ruskin Helmet combo, and I figured Dragon Claw was a good mid-ground there. And we also have a Leftovers Calm Mind 3. Oh no, I think we changed this. So disregard this set. I believe we actually changed this to Scarf Dark Hoopa. I think originally on the build we were Poison, and it was kind of like my primary Terra, like, you know, Mon that I wanted to Terra. And then I ended up changing my mind. And it was Scarf Dark, pretty strong here. Then we have Sneasler, Choice Band. We're just max, pretty simple stuff. Honestly, exerts a ton of pressure with those U-turns. Honestly, Close Combat itself and Dire Claw are both really powerful in the squad. Shadow Claw is a super effective hit into Terra Ghosts, like the Raging Bolt potentially, as well as a super effective move on Uxie, which is nice. And then we have a Helmet Rotom, pretty darn fast, but this is here to pivot in on the likes of the Sneasler, punish it with Rocky Helmet, Will-O-Wisp some things, Volt Switch around. It also spin blocks into the tread pretty darn well, which is great, and it actually outpaces Hisuian Samurai, so we can potentially Wisp that thing if it's not Scarf, and then Volt on out afterwards, which is great. Alright. That being said, shout out to Tony the Tiger. That being said, let's go ahead and jump on into it. We do see that it is going to be Terra Ghost on the Raging Bolt and Terra Poison on the DNC. So all things to keep in mind. We do end up leading with our Sneasler. I'm just going to go ahead and U-turn. They end up staying in, showing me they're either Chople or Focus Sash. Either way, it's fine. Going to pivot out into my Rotom, as EQ is going to be blocked, and they're going to show a Volt Switch right here. As I believe I just threw off a Will-O-Wisp into the incoming Raging Bolt. It does show to be Booster Special Attack and have Booster Energy as its item, which, all good to know. We're going to Volt for just the negligible amount of chip. Chip is chip, right? And Thunderclap's not really going to be the click here, as Draco Meteor comes out into my Jirachi. Now, being that they didn't Terra, it made my click a little bit easier. Obviously, if they did Terra, we'd have to be careful about switching into a Terra Blast Ghost. I think they're maybe saving it on DNC a little bit, so they held on to it. But Terra Blast Ghost is honestly unguardable for me, so that's obviously really nice. We're going to go ahead and U-turn, as it does end up Terra Ghosting here, and clicking Terra Blast Ghost into our Hoopa. But due to it being -2, even with the Proto Special Attack, we're able to take it on pretty darn well. We're going to double out here on the DNC coming in. It does show to be Air Balloon. I'm going to U-turn, be able to pop that for my Garchomp, which is great, because my Garchomp is actually walled by this up to this point. And I go into Jirachi, as I am pretty specially defensive, and we can soft check this guy. We've already forced out the Bolt, forced out its booster, so Jirachi's kind of done its job. U-turn comes out on the treads coming in, as Sneasler's going to be able to get a free switch in here. Once again, just clicking U-turn, and this burn chip is really racking up. Once we get a spike up, it's really going to be super chipped down as well. As I am just going to go into Hoopa, click Dark Pulse. It's unrecoverable on the DNC, as my Jirachi can come in right here, as they do make a double onto Sneasler. Clicking U-turn this turn, showing to also be, I believe, banded. I don't know if that confirms band or not. It does a ton of damage though, regardless. As Iron Treads is going to come out, take a nice light Psychic here, as I was just trying to kind of sack my guy off. Volt Switch is going to be clicked here on the Iron Treads. as Sneasler comes back out. Garchomp's going to come in though, and I see this as my opportunity to get up that spike as U-turn does a ridiculous amount of damage, so that might confirm ban for me. I'm not sure the other calc, but I'm pretty sure that one is. As Diancie ends up being the pivot, I guess they don't really have a great Earthquake switch in other than Uxie, and maybe they're saving Uxie for the likes of Enam and Sneasler or whatever it may be. Regardless, I'm okay with taking this damage. Now, we're not max attack as you saw in our Garchomp, so we're unfortunately not going to knock it out, but we're very bulky, so we're actually going to go ahead and live this Moonblast, which is also really, really nice. I'm going to go ahead and Earthquake and knock out the Diancie right here as Iron Treads comes out. Not going to allow this thing to spin, so I'm going to go into my Rotom immediately. If I can keep this thing low, I can even sack my Garchomp to a Rapid Spin. If it dies to like Rough Skin Helmet, the Rapid Spin won't actually pop, which is really, really nice. They make a really aggressive play in Volt Switch here, so solid play on my opponent's part, maintaining some pretty crucial offensive initiative as Samurai Hisui is going to come out, and I'm kind of forced my hand here into sacking my Garchomp to get some chip damage on this thing. We're going to die if Spike goes up anyways, and Spike is the freest thing humanly possible, so might as well get some value out of our Rough Skin Helmet. Out comes the Uxie as we are going to go ahead and just Terra Fairy this turn and substitute immediately. Gonna Moonblast here just to cover for like an Encore Uxie. I don't want to be Encored into Calm Mind or anything of the sort, as they reveal Foul Play as their only way of breaking my substitute. As we're going to Moonblast again, reveal a Citrus Berry. As a second U-turn is going to be able to break my sub. And Sneasler's going to be able to come out. Gonna go Rotom here, and again, really showing off that banded damage. Just because we're not like super bulky, we're actually going to get slept here by Dire Claw. They switch out, but they would have just killed me that next turn. The last one did 44, so maybe they thought they got a really high roll, and we're just playing a little safe, or they just wanted the aggro, get up another spike, which is also definitely fair. We're going to go ahead and die immediately to that Ceaseless Edge, but it allows my Enam to come back in. It also confirms that Samurott was not Scarf, which is valuable information for me, because I crept a non-Scarf Samurott, so all good things to know. Sneasler's going to come out, but again, its time is a bit limited. We're going to go out into a Sneasler of our own as Dire Claw does pop, and right here, we're kind of just going for a speed tie. If we can get one, we can get one. That's great. If not, that's also great. As we actually click Shadow Claw because it would have knocked out the Sneasler. It 2-KOs this Iron Treads upon switching, and it's super effective into the last two. So I figured it was nice at the very least. We're going to go ahead and just click Shadow Claw again. I'm kind of reserved for sacking off Sneasler just to get off as much damage as humanly possible. As I go in Raging Bolt, again, I'm completely fine with Thunderclap coming in, knocking us out. Then I have a free switch into my Hoopa, and I can exert some offensive pressure in that regard. As Scarf Hoopa does look like it just wins the game at this point, but they end up just going ahead and attacking me, maybe trying to, catch my choke on my switch out. Sneasler's going to come in and is going to win a speed tie and knock me out with a Dire Claw. But again, the damage has kind of been done at this point. Hoopa, everything is in range of Hoopa. We're just going to Dark Pulse here, knock out the Sneasler, and again, Scarf Hoopa is just going to be able to clean this game up. Another Dark Pulse, another Pokemon dead, and we're able to take home yet another victory against Kronos here. So definitely a solid one. Happy with the performance. And yeah, shouts to Hoopa. Really putting in some work this tournament. Hoopa and Enam, the two Terra captains, are very often kind of carrying the games on their own. So shouts to Terra. All right, next one. Alrighty, next round comes around, and we're playing against Her-to-Do with a very scary team. We have the Great Tusk and the Darkrai, obviously big threats. Terra Wellspring, their own Jirachi, a Moltres, which is surprisingly obnoxious for our team, and a Comfey, which is definitely pretty annoying as well. So, looking at the team that we ended up bringing in this battle, we have a Lumberry, Contrary, and Amorous. Once again, Terra Electric. We are Superpower, Terra Blast, Play Rough, and Zen Headbutt. There was also an Amoonguss on the bench, I want to say. So Lumberry has multiple, obviously, functions, mostly for burn on that Moltres, though. Whether it be Will-O-Wisp, whether it be Flame Body, we're able to cover both. We have a Choice Scarf, Terra Poison, Hoopa. Terra Poison is great for Comfey. If it gets out of hand, we can either Zen Headbutt or just Gong Shot it to annihilate it. I have an SD, Loaded Dice, Scale Shot, Garchomp, really outside of the Tusk. If the Tusk is chipped down, SD Chomp can super win. Dranicus also isn't doing the most damage to us, so that's obviously nice, at least at neutral. We have a pretty cool Jirachi here. We are Flashkin, Stealth Rock, Meteor Beam, and Healing Wish. Meteor Beam is for an Oko on the Moltres, which is really annoying. I feel like that's a potential, really possible lure. Flash Cannon is to hit really the majority of the team just for soft neutral damage. Stealth Rock is to get him up, and then Healing Wish is to get a second life on Enam, Chomp, or Hoopa. We have a Choice Scarf Sneasler. Again, really struggle with Darkrai. At least defensively, the team that we have doesn't really beat it. So we have double Scarfers to kind of beat it. The reason we don't have Hoopa as a means of beating it is because Foul Play does a lot of damage to us if they spec that on. So don't check it as well as you think. And then we have a Rotom here, which is going to be Volt, Hex, Willow, and Pain Split. Fizz-Def, pretty standard stock against the likes of Great Tusk. All right, that being said, let's jump right into it. So we do end up just leading our Sneasler, as Jirachi is going to lead on the opposing side. I am going to U-turn, get off a little bit of chip damage, go into guard jump, because we see this thing is immediately going to be Calm Mind. I am kind of forced into clicking Earthquake. It does show to be Shuka. We get a crit, not a high roll crit though, so you'll see it end up not mattering, or I don't even know if it was a roll, as Icy Wind is going to pop, ensuring that we are indeed slower than this Jirachi. But I can't pivot through my Hoopa on a Shadow Ball here, knock it out with a Hyperspace Fury. Hoopa getting yet another KO. This does reveal that we are Scarf though, so pretty darn free. Great Tusk, as Stealth Rock go up. I'm just gonna throw off a Will-O-Wisp. It hits everything coming in. Even getting chip damage on Darkrai on Comfey is nice. I guess Moltres can come in and block it, but then you just get volted on, so whatever. Hey, I'm recording the second half really late at night if you can't tell. So we end up going into Sneasler right here as more of an offensive switch in. Take a Dark Pulse pretty darn well. We threaten this thing pretty immensely with a close combat, so I am expecting to switch out into the Great Tusk, as we do see the Great Tusk come in. It does show to be Helmet though, which really makes this annoying for us and hard for us to deal with. I'm going to make an aggressive play here, and I'm actually going to go into my Enamours. They don't know what my set is yet, and the fact that I am contrary and physical, they probably could just stay in and beat me 1v1, but they're not going to. They're going to switch out of respect for like just really any special set. As we do Superpower on the Moltres, again, we weren't really risking Flame Body there because we have our Lumberry, and that's really all we needed for this game. Maybe a Darkrai, but at that point we've probably boosted up enough anyways. Terra Blast is going to Oko this Moltres right here. I talked with them after. I believe that just didn't matter. As the Wellspring comes in, and this is a high crit move and very strong. So if it crits me, obviously I die, but I do guaranteed live a regular cudgel from here, and we don't get crit, which is great, and we're able to knock out the Ogerpon as well. So we're in a really commanding position, up 6-3 at this point. I'm going to sack off my Garchomp to my Darkrai, or to the Darkrai. I feel like Enan can be Healing Wished up and really put some hurt on later on, so I really like that aspect of it. We're going to go into Sneasler and just kind of click a U-turn here, force out the Darkrai, do a ton of damage even if it stays in. We're also going to get hit by Helmet here, unfortunately, from this Great Tusk, but hey, what can you do? We're going to get in our Jirachi, and I'm actually going to find this as my Healing Wish opportunity. I don't really see another spot. This could potentially have been a bad play, all things dependent on the Comfey, but I really wasn't banking on the Comfey being a Calm Mind variant at this point. You'll see that kind of does end up not being true, as I do Healing Wish up, and they get my Enamours, but again, that's completely fine. Enan puts on a lot of pressure right here. Dark Pulse is going to come out here. It's completely fine. Just going to go ahead and Superpower, do a ton of damage and knock this thing out, as well as boost our attack and our defense. Now, we're in a position right here where, depending on his set, if he is very physically defensive, and we see this is going to be a Balloon variant, if it is very physically defensive on this Comfey, we need to just click Play Rough twice. As long as it doesn't get to +3, then we're good to go. Our Hoopa actually lives from there, and depending on the health it's at, we can either Zen Headbutt or Gunk Shot. We just cannot let it get up to +3 is the main issue. We're going to miss our first Play Rough, and that's really bad. Now it really comes down to how offensive this thing is, how much it needs to boost, things of the sort. So we do Play Rough. We see it's very bulky. Unfortunately, it does get off a second Calm Mind, and this is going to allow it to get a third one unless we get a really high roll or crit. We unfortunately do not, and at +3, this Comfey is going to be able to beat us. Now, there is the argument that I could have just kept my Jirachi. I think that's just a hindsight thing. I really didn't think Calm Mind was coming into this Jirachi matchup, into the Sneasler matchup, things of the sort, but it goes to show to never rule anything out, right? Like, we've brought, like, Scarf Fairy into, like, really strong Steel and Fairy Resist up to this point, too, so the game plan could have just been get rid of the Steel type, the Jirachi, and then deal with it from there. Plus, they have the Moltres, which is a pretty good answer. So yeah, unfortunately, we're just going to kind of get reverse swept by the Comfey. I do kind of stand by my play, though. Provided I just hit that Play Rough, I think I'm fine. But yeah, regardless, it happens. It's tough. And this kind of puts us in a position where we're now winning it. We are 5-2 in the tournament currently. Again, 7-2 will get us into that next stage, that top 32. So we got to win our next two, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. Alrighty, round number 8, we're going up against Toricio, if I'm saying that right. Nice guy. I believe he actually also uploads, so I'll try and remember to drop him drop his link down in the description below. Cool guy. He uploads draft stuff, so definitely go check him out. But he's a really scary team, and he's obviously been playing well. I forgot to mention too, by the way, everybody we play in this tournament has the same record as us. So if say we're 6-2 or 5-2 right now, which we are. Toricio is also 5-2, so it's good to note everybody we're playing is having a similar run to us. It's the whole point of Swiss, but I figured I'd mention it out because I just realized I hadn't yet up to this point. He's a really scary team. Obviously, we once again get to play Zarude with Terra, obviously. We once again get to play Iron Valiant. Get to play Annoying Klefki Gliscor again. The Tentacruel is always going to be a solid check to our Enamorous, depending on our Terra typing, and spoilers, we're Fairy this week, so definitely a good check to us. And then we have Dio Speed, which can outpace pretty much our entire team. So really scary threats on the opposing side. Let's see what we end up bringing in this game. And so we have an Enamorous right here. We are Choice Scarf, Terra Fairy. Pretty simple set. Moonblast, Earth Power, Mystical Fire, and Healing Wish. One of 2 Healing Wish mons on our team, I believe, actually. We'll double check that in a second, but I'm 99% sure we got double Healing Wish in this game for the rest of our offense. But really, Enam's a really strong Scarf Fairy Moonblast spammer in the end game. It also outpaces the likes of like Zarude, guaranteed, even after a Trailblaze. We can put some big damage on it with Moonblast, unless it's like Terra Poison, which isn't super likely against me, or Terra Steel, which I don't think is super likely against me. It's a really strong neutral click into it. We also have Scarf Hoopa, so double Scarf Terra Captains. Terra Dark here, Dark Pulse, Psychic, Decimon, Trick. If it is Ghost Zarude, this is a great answer to that. Really strong Pokemon in general into the team, and Trick can really cripple some Pokemon like Klefki, some Pokemon like Tentacruel, but though I don't imagine we're going to be able to trick Tentacruel. It's also really nice for Valiant once it pops its booster speed, if it is booster speed. Speaking of, once again, have a Colbur Berry, Jirachi, Flashkin, Healing Wish, U-Turn, and Stealth Rock. Pretty simple. This is going to be our Val check. And it's here to come in, pivot on that, starting it out with the Flash Cannon, and we can Healing Wish up something like Hoopa, something like Enam, or something like our Garchomp, which we are a Lumberry Swords Dance set this week. Scale Shot, Earthquake, Liquidation, Swords Dance puts on a lot of pressure offensively here. The Fairies don't take Earthquake very well at all at +2, especially if we have our rocks up from Jirachi. Liquidation is really just here to put the most damage on Gliscor humanly possible. We're actually Lumberry, so we can set up on it. Say we SD on a switch into Gliscor. As it comes in, if it tries to Toxic us, we can either SD again, we can Scale Shot, get a speed boost, and then knock it out with Liquidation. There's a ton of different sequences in which we can do a lot of damage. We also have our Life Orb for Alligator, Liquidation, Dragon Dance, Ice Punch, and Psychic Fangs. Pretty simple set, really strong offensively in this matchup. Once we get to +1, we have the potential of OHKOing literally every Pokemon on the opposing side. +2 is needed to outspeed everything though, so something else to keep in mind. And lastly, we have Serena. I figured we needed some kind of hazard control in just Klefki plus Gliscor, to be honest with you. So that's what Serena is honestly just here to do, is keep away hazards. We can get off spin pretty freely in this matchup, where Sylphus just kind of as a general sponge pivot item. Let's just like soft check things like Deoxys Speed and Iron Valiant if it is special, which is nice. And offensively, it's actually really strong between Power Whip and Triple Axle. Another thing that really switched into that combination of moves right now is going to be the Klefki, but Klefki takes a lot from an Adamant Power Whip, and very often doesn't have the recovery to back up, taking that hit consistently. So, yeah, that's from the team. Let's go ahead and jump right into the battle. We are going to see a Gliscor lead into our Serena lead. I want to lead well into hazards. I want to lead well into Gliscor in particular. And yeah, that being said, we're just going to go ahead and click Power Up this first turn. I don't expect them to want to take a Triple Axle, and Power Up is going to do the most damage to Klefki humanly possible. It also covers the Klefki being potentially like a Rocky Helmet variant, and taking that extra damage would be bad. So one tick a Rocky Helmet is better than 3, basically, is how I see it. So we see a Protect here, as Power Up is going to whiff into it. And right here, I'm thinking, okay, I mean, might as well punish an over-aggressive play, right? They can go Klefki, it's annoying, but Triple Axle, pretty darn free if they do end up staying in, and picking up this KO would be absolutely huge for the squad. So I am just going to go ahead and click Triple Axle here, and they do end up just sacking the Gliscor. Maybe thinking I didn't have Axle because I didn't click it the first turn. Honestly, I'm not sure. So great trade from Serena here. Light Screen is going to go up from this Klefki, which allows me to get a whole 33% off on it before it gets up a Reflect here, which is great. We're going to have to kind of be careful about these screens being up. I'm going to U-turn here on the Zarude coming hard in. It does pop a Key Berry. It doesn't do that much damage, but it does allow us to reset tempo, get into an Enamorous, and force a Terra right here. I pivot back through Serena, and Serena can go ahead and just U-turn out. Once we force this Terra Ghost, which I forgot to mention it was Terra Ghost, we can U-turn out, get into our Hoopa, and pressure it in that regard. So it was really just kind of about forcing the Terra and making sure the type matchups were correct. I'm going to go ahead and Terra Dark here, Dark Pulse for 50%, so still a 2-hit KO through screen. And being that this thing went for Terra Blast right here, we're actually going to eat this up very, very comfortably. We ate a knockoff up really comfortably. And again, a lot like that first Zarude matchup where we saw Terra Ghost, I think you can very justifiably go mono Terra Blast versus me, because my team doesn't have a conventional Ghost Resistance. Even then, like, look how much Hoopa token will be Terra Dark, right? So really fair play. We're able to force it out here as the Iron Valiant's going to come in. Only a couple more turns of screens, which is also nice as I pivot out into my Jirachi. A Calm Mind's going to come out here. So through the Calm Mind boost, even though light screen ends, we're not going to be able to pick up a KO on this thing with a flash cannon. But what we will do is we will put it in range of pretty much anything on the rest of our team. Not going to be able to get up our rocks this game, which is a little annoying, but hey, it's better than getting swept by Iron Valiant, right? So Shadow Ball's going to pop. It's going to knock out our Jirachi. I'm going to go into Serena here as they end up Destiny bonding. They wouldn't have killed me with any +1 hit. We were Assault Vest, so good to know. Power Up is going to knock it out, but it knocks us out as well. Honestly, good trade from the Valiant. Like on his end, he gets 2 out of it, which is pretty clutch, but I still feel pretty darn in control. We've popped the berry on the Zarude. We've also got it down to half and forced the Terra. We have Klefki down at half. Tentacruel is a support piece, is just a support piece. Really the biggest threat left is going to be this Deoxys, but other than that, 2 big threats in Valiant and Gliscor are both dead. So, I mean, great start for me, to be honest with you. Hoopa's going to come out here. I'm going to pivot out on the Deoxys here as a superpower does pop. It can very comfortably outspeed Scarf. So, obviously very nice there. We're going to force a little bit of Rough Skin Chip, and we'll see that it's actually going to be a Jetpack, which is really interesting because that means that we don't have to worry about it staying in and Ice Beaming and pivoting through Ice Beam or whatever it may be. We're actually going to force out this Zarude, and I click Scale Shot here. The reason I click Scale Shot here is because I wasn't 100% sure on how fast this Zarude was actually going to be, so I wanted to guarantee outspeed the next turn so I could start Swords Dancing up and not allowing it to, bulk up, as freely. Plus, if we got 4 hits, we actually just knocked it out. We only got 2, which is a little unfortunate, but hey, not the end of the world. 40% is going to pop here from this from this Earthquake, as Terra Blast is going to do 50 back to me at -1, and at this point, Garchomp's exerting a ton of offensive pressure. The Dio can obviously outspeed us, but they have to find the opportunity to get in with their Dio. And in the meantime, I am just going to get a KO with Garchomp here. So I do click EQ. Crit doesn't matter in a Tentacruel. It wasn't shook or anything like that. Down it goes. Next, out comes Klefki. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, this is screaming screens, right? Because otherwise I just EQ and I knock it out. So what I can do is I can Swords Dance pretty freely. If it ends up being Magnetized, I can Liquidation the turn afterwards. But I don't think it can really fit Magnetize regardless, being that it is dual screens. But either way, Swords Dance covers both. If they get me on a Dazzling Gleam, they get me, but I think it's a pretty ballsy bluff to go hard into this and not reflect. So I'm going to Swords Dance up right here as it does end up going for the reflect, and this is basically like I'm back at neutral, right? I'm going to go ahead and knock this guy out. Finally, the Deoxys is going to come out. I figured this would happen after the Tentacle Sack happened, but hey, we'll take it, right? We do go down to an Ice Beam. A little unfortunate, but we're going to go out into Feraligatr and really set up this Enamor's endgame because we can live 1 hit from this Deoxys guaranteed. Throw off a Liquidation, even through Reflect. This is Life Orb Sheer Force, and this is most likely a very offensive Deoxys, being that it's showing mixed. We do 53 through the screen, which is awesome, and that is plenty to set up a Scarf Enamor's endgame. The Zarude is only at 31. This thing is only at 35. Both are in range, and Enam's just going to go ahead and lock this game up and bring us home with 2-0 victory and let us move on to round number 9. Now, again, remember, in order to move on to top 32 of the tournament, we do have to win this last game and go 7-2. 6-3 is not good enough to make it in Swiss. As good of a record as it is, and as good of a tournament, regardless as it's been so far, we do need to win our next game in order to move on, and we'll see how that goes here. Or here we are, round number 9. We're going up against Shade here, and again, a really scary squad. Full of a bunch of threats that we faced in one of the games we actually already lost. Mostly that Terapagos plus that Gouging Fire. Both of them big nuisances. We have pretty similar defensive counterplay this time. We also have annoying threats like Jirachi, which can Healing Wish things up. Samurott, which is another one we struggle with in past matchups, and the fact that we don't have great switch-ins and it gets up hazards for free against us. And Terra Torn, which is a big problem. It outspeeds the entirety of our team, minus, I believe, Sneasler, right? Let me see, 375. Oh no, it just outspeeds Sneasler. I don't know why I'm thinking Sneasler's faster than 121. I thought it was like 124 for some reason. I don't know. Regardless, big threats on the opposing side. But I think we have a pretty fun team for it this time. So let's go and take a look. First up, we have Scarf Garchomp. We're going a little bit more offensive on our Trump this time. Gives us a guaranteed answer to +1 Gouging, which is the main thing, right? Between Earthquake, Dragonclaw, Outrage, and Stone Edge. We actually have 4 moves that hit Gouging super effectively. Not that that matters. I just think that's funny. But once we can eliminate certain, problem Pokemon, like say we eliminate Jirachi, Scarf Outrage endgame or Scarf Dragonclaw endgame is a very possible thing. This also gives us something faster than a Rapid Spun Terapagos, which is great, and something faster than Torn, provided it's not Scarf, which I don't expect it to be Scarf in this matchup. So Scarf Chomp is actually a really, really important piece. Speed control wise, revenging a lot of Shade's really scary offense. Then we once again have a Assault Vest Hoopa. This time we are probably planning on tearing it in this battle. We are Terra Water with Hyperspace Fury, Drain Punch, Ice Punch, and Foul Play. Now, again, 4 coverage moves are pretty strong, or 3 coverage moves that are pretty strong. Hyperspace for stab, Drain Punch for recovery, as well as hitting both Hoopa, both Terapagos and Samurott Hisui. Ice Punch to put the most damage on Flying Torn, as well as that Gligar, which is nice that we end up, bringing coverage move for that. And then Foul Play. Foul Play is there to not be complete fodder for Gouging Fire. If it wants to boost up its attack, it's going to have to take Foul Plays in the meantime, unless it's breaking, swiping us, and things like that. We once again have our same Torrent, Rocky Helmet, Endeavor Gator set, Aqua Jet, Roar, Endeavor, and Flip Turn. Again, same idea as the last one. We can always keep it low with Endeavor. We can Roar it out if it's setting up. We can Torrent, Aqua Jet, pick things off, and we can maintain initiative with Flip Turn. Pretty simple. We have a Choice Banded Sneasler, as I think it can actually put on a lot of pressure depending on what the Terra typing on the Torn is. Grabbing really, really strong U-turns, really annoying U-turns, getting some poison touches, maybe even getting some Dire Claws. Plus, Banded Gunk Shot, really, really strong, even if it is Terra Ghost Torn. If it's switching on a Banded Gunk Shot, it's probably going to have to pivot out or whatever it may be. Maybe not pivot out because it's just faster than this, but we're going to put a lot of damage on it and put a lot of pressure on. And we have a Power Herb Jirachi here. The main reason for this is that we don't want to be fodder for the gouging. We're 3 attacks, rocks. We're Side Shock, Meteor Beam, Stealth Rock, and Shadow Ball. Pretty simple. It actually has pretty good coverage into this team, minus the Samurott Hisui, but they're going to have to kind of scout and see what we're rocking with before that. I kind of thought about doing Aura Sphere over Shadow Ball, but I wanted the ability to hit the opposing Jirachi, as it really opens up the rest of our team. Like I said, that Scarf Outrage endgame, or a Scarf Moonblast endgame, as we do have a Terra Ground here. Again, I don't really plan on tearing it. Terra Ground is literally as like insurance, like, oh no, I need to put a lot of damage on Gouging Fire fast. You can tell I'm really scared of gouging. But otherwise, we're here just kind of Moonblast, Earth Power, Healing Wish, and then we also have Focus Blast. I'm forgetting what was left on the bench for Focus Blast. Oh no, I think it's literally just as I move to hit Terapagos post Shell as hard as humanly possible, if it is also getting out of hand and, rapid spun up and things like that. Just does a lot of damage. But again, 90% of the time, Moonblast, Earth Power, maybe Healing Wishing something up, but yeah, that being said, let's go ahead and jump on into it. So going into the battle, we do see that this is going to be Terra Ghost Torn. So good things to know. I am leading with my Jirachi, as I think the potential of forcing in gouging and making it take a Power Meteor Beam is really nice. We see a Torn lead right here. They don't know what my set is, and it makes sense that they don't want to risk getting like T-Waved or anything like that. So I'm just going to get up my Stealth Rock, as Samurott is going to pivot out here. Going to go hard into Sneasler, as Ceaseless Edge does a ridiculous amount of damage. Just 42. Almost making me think it's Banded. Guaranteeing that it's definitely Adamant at the very least. Gligar's going to be the pivot into Sneasler, as I'm going to get into Gator. In my mind, they probably don't want to risk me being just like DD and setting up and doing a ton of damage. They do technically have the Terapagos, but like losing that thing's shell really early would kind of suck. Regardless, I'm going to get pretty lucky here and dodge a Toxic, which is going to let me get a very, very free Flip Turn, revealing that I'm a very defensive Gator, by the way, letting me get into Jirachi. And after this chip and showing how physically defensive this is a KO with Power Herb Meteor Beam. It just is. So we're going to go ahead and click it. Meteor Beam up, get it to +1, and knock out this Gligar from 51, getting up to +1 in the meantime. Next Torn is going to come out. I don't really have a switch into Ghost Terra Blast, and we've kind of given up the bluff of being like AV or being like, British Spirit, or whatever it may be. We're going to die here. I get out into my Hoopa though, and again, I do reserve tearing immediately, and I'm just going to go ahead and click Hyperspace Fury. I wanted to get off this Terra immediately, one, because water's good into the gouging. It's good into Aqua Jet too, from likes of Hisui and Samurott, but it's also good into Bug Buzz Terapagos, which I really, really wanted to cover. I thought there was a very high likelihood that it could potentially come, because Hoopa is really my only answer to Terapagos. I'm going to go ahead and take a Ceaseless Edge from the Samurott here once again, as Jirachi is going to pivot out. I don't have the balls to click Earth Power on the switch in, but a little bit of chip from Earth Power, or from Moonblast, isn't terrible. As for Alligator, is going to be the pivot in. Ice Punch pops. We do get a little bit of Helmet, and again, we're taking a little bit of damage for this gouging, but it's not the end of the world. Thunder Wave does hit, which is obnoxious, but as long as we don't get paired too much, we should be fine. And I'm going to go into Guard Chomp here. Now, hindsight, I'm not sure about how I feel about this play. On one hand, we can go into Sneasler and kill this thing with close combat guaranteed. But what that does is it allows in Tornadus, and then I'm in a bad spot and I have to sack a Pokemon pretty much immediately. Going into Garchomp should net me a KO with Earthquake. There's no ground resist anymore, but there is always the possibility of a Shuka Berry. I'm going to click Earthquake. not only is it Shookaberry, we don't do enough damage to KO it from 44, and it does get off a really strong Ice Punch. And the issue with this is that now I really struggle switching back in with the spikes up. Plus, my opponent makes a good play and they go into Torn. The reason this is such a good play, in my opinion, is because I either have to save my Garchomp at 19% with 2 spikes up, maybe Healing Wish up later, and give up a KO to something else, or I have to sack my Garchomp here. And I do elect to sack the Garchomp right here. Again, this could have been the right call, this could not be. We'll see how the game ends up playing out. I'm not 100% sure. Let me know what you guys think in the comments about, like, this sequence of plays and what I use to revenge Jirachi, I guess, is the way I'm looking at it. So we are going to die here. I'm going to go into Enam, though, and I am going to be able to pick off the Torn, which is probably one of the biggest threats to my team. Scarf Moonblast endgame is also looking potentially very likely. Just have to position it correctly. As the Terapagos is going to switch out here. It does show to be Boots. And again, we have our Hoopa as an answer here. Rapid Spin is going to do 24, so after 2 spikes, it has a decent chunk. What we can do here is, as a Rapid Spin does pop, I am just going to go ahead and Drain Punch, get a little bit of health back as we pop the Terra Shell, and we are at a range of health to where this thing cannot reliably beat us. We do guarantee live that Terra Starstorm, by the way. It wasn't a roll, just he did a lot. This next one, once again, isn't going to kill us. I'm going to be able to KO it with the Drain Punch. So, Hoopa did his job, right? Hoopa did great. Now, what can happen is either Samrock can come out and kill us with a Ceaseless Edge and get up a 3rd spike, but it's a little risky, right, in the sense that they can miss, and then I can just Drain Punch all of my health back and kill the Samurott, or then go into Gouging and kind of use this as a setup opportunity. I are going to go into Gouging right here as they do Dragon Dance, and I click Foul Play. Again, if this is offensive Gouging, this is a 2 KO, so they can't set up ++1, and I should be fine to revenge with an Amorous. The issue is this is very fat Gouging that only does 36, so I am just going to continue to spam Foul Play as another Dragon Dance does pop. This unfortunately looks to not be quite enough to KO here. We only do 50%. As a Morning Sun is going to come out. Again, we can always bait for a crit right here. I don't think they're Bulwark on this set. They do show to be very bulky, but being that they showed Morning Sun shows me that they're probably not any kind of Bulwark. As they do just continue to spam Foul Play, keep this thing as low as humanly possible. Again, a crit would be great. We get a higher roll right there, get for 51, and then they're going to Breaking Swipe and knock me out. However, this shows me they are not like Dragon Claw or Outrage, which would be the only moves that could knock out my Gator after 2 spikes with 66%. And they're also very, very defensive, so they're likely not super attack invested. What I can do here is I can go into Gator and immediately roar this thing out. If I can roar this thing out, I'm putting myself in a pretty prime position to win this game. What we can do is we can go ahead and click Roar out into Samurott, continuously spam Roar, or try and get a slow flip turn off. If we can do that, we can position something like Bandit Sneasler, which won't allow 2 Dragon Dances, and then win with like a Scarf Enam endgame, right? Or vice versa, Enam into Sneasler, whatever it may be. But the main thing is we can the offense in the back that we have doesn't allow Gouging to get up 2 Dragon Dances again. We unfortunately do get parried right here. As a Breaking Swipe does pop, we are going to get an attack drop, and I'm going to roar this turn. I have to roar over Endeavoring because at -1, even in Torrent, after an Endeavor, I'm not going to KO this Gouging. I'm just not, especially after leftovers. So having to roar there and take that damage instead of when they just Morning Sunned up was very, very unfortunate. They are going to knock me out with a Ceaseless Edge right here. As I do go down, I'm going to go out into my Sneasler right here, only at 33%. And we're going to get Aqua Jetted and die. This was also a roll. Again, not crying about hacks. I believe this was in my favor. I want to say it was like 60-40 or 70-30 in my favor to live that Aqua Jet. If we live that Aqua Jet, we also lock up the game, right? Because Close Combat kills this thing. And again, it's going to put him in a position where he can't get up 2 Dragon Dances on my Sneasler. I'm Choice Band Adamant Sneasler. So there's no universe in which he does get up 2 Dragon Dances. My Enam can always come in and revenge with Earth Power. And we're looking good to go. There still is maybe a universe where we can win. Unfortunately, they do Aqua Jet here. They show to be Assault Vest on the Samurott. Part of me also thought that they were potentially banded in the scenario too on their Samurott. So I thought I was okay in that regard. I think they were just adamant, and I like read like low roll band or something like that. But yeah, we're gonna Earth Power, knock this thing out, and unless we like super giga crit this thing or it doesn't have coverage for us, which crit wouldn't even come close to killing, He Crash is gonna kill us. And we're going to lose this one. Again, definitely a little unlucky in that one. I think there was definitely better play pass I could have taken. But it just came down to kind of getting a little unfortunate with both the para and not getting the roll on Sneasler. and we're not going to make top 32. But despite that, I was really, really happy with this tournament run. I think I played really well. I think I sweat my builds to a very sufficient degree, and it showed off in the performance that we had, going 6-3 and only kind of getting knocked out due to a really tough matchup and getting a little bit unlucky. Again, I'm not saying like, oh my god, I got robbed. I think Shade played great. The Torn Bring was really, really solid. He exerted a ton of pressure. I love the bulky gouging into me too. Like really, really solid brings. But regardless, I'm super happy with this performance. I think we played incredibly well, and I think it's setting a good precedent for tournaments to come and things of the sort. So I'm excited. I also don't think our team was great. I think it was a very clunky team, but it was a ton of fun. I loved Hoopa Unbound. I mean, you see in the thumbnail, I loved using Terra Hoopa for 8 points. Absolute steal. So I'd always recommend it if you're playing in any of these tournaments and you can get 2 Terra Hoopa. I think you should do it as a secondary Terra Captain if you have another one that doesn't mind not tearing sometimes, like I did with Enam. So, yeah, let me know what you guys thought of the team and the run down in the comments below. Please drop a like, and if you enjoyed, sub if you're new. Please go and double check and make sure you're subbed, or see if you're not subbed and sub. And yeah, that being said, thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one on Sunday. Later.